Hi, friends. This is Mangala Pratap and Muralidharan talking to you today about learning efficiencies and task design. Friends, whenever we design a task, we have to keep in mind learner profile, learner interests, and also the learning environment in which we are going to really work on a specific task. So, when we design a task, what we're supposed to do is we have to keep in mind the kind of participative learning process that we try to facilitate through the task inputs. So, any task, given its nature, has to be customized, personalized, and there should be learner motivation to make the task quite interesting for the learners to participate in the process of learning. Their perspectives on learning must be taken into account, or their past learning experiences must be understood. If we do not have any idea about their past learning experiences, it's high time that we try to explore how to make learning quite vivid and interesting by making the entire process quite learner friendly. In other words, learner centric task design is extremely important. At the same time, a multimodal composition of learning should be made use of when we try to design a task. Say, for example, if you're trying to design a listening task, you have to really look into the learner profile and see what type of listening that learners do on a day-to-day basis. Only on the basis of the kind of listening that they are interested in, we can choose either a monologue or a dialogue or a conversation. Most of the time, if it's going to be a conversation, that they would love to really look into it or rather listen to it. And sometimes they would try to participate in similar context specific communication. In other words, conversational English can be taught only when you have such conversations which are integrated in the listening section or the listening tasks. Remember, you could possibly think about incorporating the American accent there or Australian, Canadian, New Zealandian, West Indies accent in addition to the British accent. But remember, the variations of accents could be possibly taught through this. You could also look at the culture specific inputs of conversations. That's very important. See, sometimes we don't look into just the cultural inputs. So we'll have to look at communication in a larger perspective. We'll have to give a lot of importance on communicative functions, and we'll have to really also design the linguistic inputs that we try to provide in addition to the communicative inputs that we try to orient our students for. So the participative process of learning can really enhance their learning efficiency. So how do we understand that their learning efficiency helps them to contextualize their communication? Again, you'll have to provide them chances in terms of role play or even in terms of micro presentations. And you could always ask them to share their experiences at the end of your learning session. So they would say exactly what they felt and what they have, possibly learned. How are they going to make use of, and give them a chance to apply all that they have learned. Ask them specific questions on how will they apply whatever they've learned. Is there a possibility for them to decode the context specific variations while applying it in their culture, in their society? So that's very important. And you could also try to make them aware of how language learning happens without their knowledge when they participate in the process of listening to various dialects and conversational patterns, that they do get to know how they start a conversation, how they introduce somebody, how they try to introduce a topic, how do they try to overcome some sort of an initial reticence that they face, and they do really understand how to conclude, right? So communicative functions of the target language should also be taught along with these task designing that we try to do. Remember, our tasks must focus on linguistic inputs in terms of structures that we try to teach them, the words that we try to teach them, the pronunciation of the words, and of course, it's quite important for us also to make sure that the communicative functions are taught in addition to the inputs on the cultural code of communication. How do we really make them understand, recognize, identify, get to know various patterns of cultural changes that happen, or rather, cultural inputs on the task are also extremely important. So, learners are aware of what they learn and they do understand where could they use it, how could they use it. So that's very important when it comes to the pedagogic efficiency. I would always say learning efficiency in task design will help you to enhance your pedagogic efficiency. It does support the received curriculum in a big way, that students or participants who learn from the tasks can possibly understand how to use it. So context specific inputs, learner centric inputs are going to be taken into account while we design the tasks. So learning efficiency matters a lot. So we'll have to assess how learners have improved over a period of time. What have they learned? How have they accomplished their learning? Is there anything that they could do with whatever they have learned in real time conversations? These are questions that you have to ask your students, and you need to make sure that learning efficiency occurs quite often, and you have to make sure that every learner gets benefited out of the task that you design. Hope this particular video is useful. If you want to know more about it, please make it a point to send an email to me or message me. You can also visit me at www.mangalaprataban.in. That is www.mangalaprataban.in. Wish you all success. Have a great day. Bye bye. See you.